Economics Grade 12. Good afternoon. I'm Mr. Mhlomo. I'm back here with you as usual. But today, for this academic year, is for the last time. Welcome to this session, and I believe it will benefit you a lot as we prepare for paper 2 tomorrow. Our focus today is on paper 2. As we all know that tomorrow grade 12 economics will be writing economics paper 2. These are the main topics to be covered here as for a part of revision: microeconomics, as well as contemporary economic issues. Firstly, I would like to congratulate you on paper 1. I believe you did very well, because if one tries to check around responses on the question paper on how you felt about the question paper, most of the things are positive. So I think that gave you a great motive. And I believe that also as we approach this revision session, it will be of a greater incentive to you. It will assist you as you prepare for this examination that will be written tomorrow. As we start, I would like to wish you all the best for this paper that will be written tomorrow. Just to remind you, our paper 2 will be written on a second session tomorrow, not in the morning session. So just be prepared. And if you join us here, I believe there will be something that will grab, which will assist you on your strategies as you prepare for this examination. As we open the door, this is our revision paper 2, final economics revision. Our paper is paper 2. Today is the 6th of November 2023, and tomorrow is the 7th of November 2023. So everything about economics in grade 12 for this academic year ends tomorrow at 4 o'clock for normal people that are having 2 hours to write, and for those with concessions, it will be ending around past, depending on how many minutes you have per hour. So as you see here, this part has been completed. We are done with this. We have done everything possible to ensure that we put ourselves in the right direction. The focus is on paper 2. Our paper, as usual, is 150 marks. Duration is 2 hours. The main topics are as follows. We have microeconomics as a main topic in here. Under microeconomics, we have the likes of perfect markets, imperfect markets, as well as market failures. And then another main topic here will be contemporary economic issues. Subtopics in there are as follows. We have inflation, tourism, and environmental sustainability. So everything is sweet here. There's nothing that you can really cry out of. Everything is sweet. All these options given to you here are enjoyable. If you really get time to prepare yourself, I know you have been writing maths Friday and today, but you have time again to prepare for this session. Nothing is new to you. Whatever we'll be doing today and tonight, you are just reminding yourself on what you have been doing for prelims and also adding the value on something that confused you. So these topics are all enjoyable, and I believe you also enjoy them, because mostly when we check the stats, we have been doing better in paper 2 compared to paper 1 over the past examinations. Details of the question paper. So the paper carries 150 marks, and then it's 2 hours. Let me remind you something. You must be very much efficient, because this time is agreed upon nationally. There is no way that you as an individual, you can get the special time unless you are the part of the concession group. So you must be efficient on the given time. Ensure that you answer efficiently. You use your time efficiently, because you will find yourself only spending an hour for one question, maybe for an essay. Then you discover late that you still have 3 questions to answer, section A and section B. So it is very important for you to become even more efficient as you use your time when answering the question paper. Remember that your question paper consists of 6 questions where you will need to answer only 4. Section A is compulsory for all of us. Everyone is forced or obliged to answer Section A, which is out of 30 marks. Section B consists of 3 questions, but you answer only 2. Remember, in there we have question 2, question 3, question 4. So each one of these questions consists of 40 marks. You choose only 2 because our section B is out of 80 marks. And then section C, there are 2 questions given in there, but you answer only 1. That one is between question 5 and question 6. So you are spoiled of choices here because you have your microeconomics to choose from, you have your contemporary economic issues to choose from. So there's really a balance in this paper. I don't see you struggling along the paper tomorrow, regardless of how it will appear. Like I've mentioned, section A is compulsory out of 30 marks. In there we have question 1, which consists of 1.1, that is our multiple choice. We are given 8 question statements, each answer worth 2 marks, then you get 16 over 16. And then 1.2, you are matching items between column A and column B. Remember, it is very important that you use a letter, not writing the full statement when you match items in there. So each answer is 1 mark, then you get your 8 marks. And then give the term in 1.3. So in this case, we are given the definition. You simply provide the term or the concept in there. It's very important for you also to read it with understanding before you provide the answer. Then that is 6 marks. All in all, you get 30 marks. And then this is the distribution of questions in this question paper. Like I've mentioned before, we have your microeconomics, and then you have your contemporary economic issues. That is your question 1. So it combines both of your main topics, micro and economic issues. And then your question 2 is only microeconomics, meaning if you want to answer question 2 in the question paper tomorrow, you must capitalize on doing microeconomics. What is there? In there, we deal with the perfect market, we deal with imperfect markets, and then we deal with market failures. So if you can master that thoroughly, be aware that you will be having an advantage over answering question 2. And then we go to question 3. In there, we have contemporary economic issues. Then we have what we call inflation, we have tourism, we have environmental sustainability. We are spoiled of choices, like I've mentioned before. Both of these are open and they give you an advantage. So if you look at question 3, we have inflation, which is enjoyable. We have tourism, which is mostly enjoyable. We have environmental sustainability, which requires you to simply stick on the content. There will be nothing much. Just stick on the content that have been taught and then understand the environment and the economy. Then it will be easy for you to go through if you want to answer question 3. So that simply means if we are good on inflation topics and subtopics or content, tourism as well as environmental sustainability, then you have an advantage to choose your question 3. And then question 4. Question 4 is the combination of both microeconomics as well as contemporary economic issues. So that simply means you must know both topics here, micro and economic issues, for you to answer question 4. It combines the both, which is 20 marks and 20 marks. And then you go to the section C. There you come across question 5, which is your essay. We have microeconomics. So essays will be distributed, will be shown to you how they are distributed across microeconomics. And then really, if we are good in microeconomics, we have this essay that will be given to you to answer. And then we have your question 6. Economic issues also have some essays in there. So you have to choose. You have to choose. You really have to choose. And then how can you score marks in section A? I want to remind you again, it is very important for you to take section A seriously, avoiding to guess answers before you even read statements, bringing answers that are not even there. It is very important for you to ensure that you capitalize in section A. Remember, as we're writing this examination, we all have a goal to achieve. So you can easily achieve your goal if you take every question given to you seriously. Avoid guessing, giving options in there. Read the question statement with understanding. If we have to match items correctly. If we have to provide the concept of the term correctly. Avoid guessing. So under multiple choice, you read the statement with understanding. Have an answer in your mind. Then you can look for that answer if it's available in the given options. That is 1.1. And then you must be very precise when choosing an answer on the given options, because sometimes you find that one answer is related, one answer is purely correct. So you must be very precise as you choose the answer. And then do not guess an answer. Contextualize, classify given options to the question statement. Do not guess the answer. We've seen that most people simply guess, and as you guess, you have an opportunity to get 0 in there. And then as we continue in section A, you must not leave anything unattended. It is very important that you attend in all questions or given statements in there. Then you give the relevant answer and correct answer. Do not write one answer on top of another answer. It is very important for you to do the following. If ever C is wrong, you scratch it, and then you want to write B, then B must be clear. Other than saying C, then you say B. This thing is unclear now. So it is very important for you to ensure that if you believe that the answer is wrong, make it wrong. I mean, scratch it, and then you answer on the open space so that your answer can easily be seen by the marker. And then we continue. That word about 16 marks. So you know better that this 16 marks is very important for you in order for you to reach your target. And then in 1.2, that's why we are matching items. Now we are giving options in column A and column B. You must know descriptions in column A before you search for a corresponding answer in column B. It is very important that if you are given a column A option, you can be able to describe or define. You have the content as the part of the background of that content, I mean, what you call a concept given to you. And then you can simply look for it on the given option in column B. But if you don't know, you will end up guessing answers. And remember, once you get one answer wrong here, it's highly possible that you get the second answer wrong. Always start with answers you know. It is very important for you to start by providing answers for the answers that you are sure they are correct, before checking on all again to see if how many options are available and then how many options that are unmatched. Then you will start to work around those given options that you are trying to understand, but they are confusing you. But if you just want to answer everything at the same time in there, you will find yourself providing wrong answers and you can lose marks. It is very important that out of these 8 marks, you get 8/8, so that you put yourself at the advantage side, so that as you go to section B and section C, already you have something in the bag. Use elimination method by starting with the answers that you are sure they are correct, and then you check others after you've capitalized on what you know is correct. And then we continue. Contextualize remaining options in column A, and then after, try to drive and attend to the answer. It will be easy for you to get the answer correct if you have managed to eliminate by starting with answers that you are sure they are correct. Then this worth 8 marks, and this is for free. You can get this 8/8 plus that 16/16, we have 24. So we are very close on escaping a certain level that you don't like to have in this subject. 1.3 descriptions. So you must know your terminology. It is very important that you know your concept per chapter. And then you must use mind the gap definitions given at the beginning of each topic, so that you will always get them correct if they are given in there in 1.3. Do not use abbreviations. Remember, they are not acceptable in there, including acronyms. You must provide full sentences, full concepts in 1.3. If the answer is what we call is marginal utility, it can't be MU, it should be marginal utility. Avoid abbreviating, because that will be marked wrong while you even knew the answer. Do not leave anything unattended. So we are familiar with this. You normally leave spaces in there because there is this perception which emphasizes that to you, and in your own perception, you believe 1.3 is difficult. 1.3 is very easy. You just have to know your content. If you know your content, it will be easy for you to jump and get answers in 1.3. This was 6 marks. Then you get this, you have 30/30. Then you can jump. How can you approach the question paper easily? You must read each question with understanding before attempting to answer, because if you don't read the question with understanding, you will be having a challenge of answering the question wrongly. Avoid early excitement. It is very important for you to read the question with understanding, and then read it again until you understand the requirements of the question before you jump and be excited. Do not guess section A. Like I've mentioned, you must not guess in the read data response with understanding while highlighting important information and contextualize it. It is very important that if we are given the data response, you read it with understanding. and then contextualize, locate the content where that particular data response belong, and then after it will be easy for you to remember even answers. Improve your ability to link, because the question paper requires most of application or linking. Be smart when answering application questions. It is very important that you become even smart when you answer those questions that require applications. Provide enough information, and also avoid spending more time, especially if ever the answer is for 2 marks, to provide the full paragraph. That will be wrong, because you are wasting more time. You are becoming even more inefficient. Answer in full sentences on questions that require explanation. If ever the question requires you to explain, you must answer in full sentences. Do not simply mention or list, because that will result to you forfeiting marks. We continue with the approaching the question paper. Let mark allocation determine time that you can spend on the given question. It is very important that if ever they say list or identify, you spend less time, because you know the answer is the answer worth 1 mark. If ever the question requires you to discuss or briefly discuss for 8 marks, then you can spend a little bit of a time. But also, it is very important for you not to sleep on the question, because if you sleep on the question, you will never complete your paper. Trust me, you will complain after that. Avoid leaving blank spaces in section A, that's a repetition. Avoid answering all 3 questions in section B. So in section B, remember, you are given 3 questions, you must answer only 2. So if you answer all of them, all of the 3, the marker will only choose the first 2, meaning the third one will be cancelled, because we have answered extra questions that are not even required. You are required only to answer 1 question. Also, the very important thing, if you spend more time answering all questions in section B, that simply means you will be forfeiting section C. You won't be having enough time to respond in section C. So it is very important for you to also ensure that this training works on your favor, so that you get there, you simply deliver. Avoid answering both questions in section C. Remember, you are given two questions in there, question 5 and question 6. Answer only 1. It is very important for you to know the following. Do not steal the additional part for question 5 and put it in question 6. That will not be marked. And do not steal the additional part for question 6 and put it in question 5. If you choose question 5, answer question 5 from the introduction to the additional part. Then you go straight even to the conclusion. Do not steal additional parts from other question and bring it to another question. It is very important that you know that we have seen that happening, and it's not working for you, and it will never work for you. If you choose question 5, answer everything in question 5. If you choose question 6, answer everything in question 6 also. Be able to draw, analyze, and interpret graphs, cartoons, extracts, and data in section B. Data response. It is very important in this paper that you are able to deal with graphs, because your question 2 is about microeconomics. Most of the content is explained through graphs in there. Your question 4 is also having some graphs, because it combines microeconomics. Even your question 3 have some graph that can be drawn for externalities, also for demand pull inflation, for cost push inflation. So it is very important that you are well informed about graphs. You must enjoy graphs if you are going to write paper 2, because everything is derived from graphs, or the content comes from graph, or graphs will be coming from the content. So it is very important for you to equip yourself on that matter. Be able to draw and interpret graphs for section C when needed. Whenever needed for you to draw graphs, be able to draw graphs and then interpret. One thing that you must note, before you draw the graph, there must be a heading for the graph. And then you draw your axis, you label on axis. You label on axis, then after that, you continue with the graph according to the requirements. It is very important that you do that. Be able to calculate cost and revenues, profits and loss, and inflation rate. It is very important that if you are required to calculate cost and revenues, you use the cost and revenues table, be able to calculate them when needed. And also profits and loss are very important for you. Also, it is very important for you to be able to calculate inflation rate, because we can come across the question requiring you to calculate inflation rate. Remember also the cost benefit analysis. You must be able to calculate in there. Also, it is very important for you to be able to calculate the CBR cost benefit ratio. You must know all of your graphs. So this is the example of 1.3. Give one term for each of the following descriptions. Write only the term next to the question number 1.3.1 to 1.3.6 in the answer book. Abbreviations, acronyms, and examples will not be accepted. Let's check. The period of production where all factors of production can change. And then we continue. A point where firms' average revenue the price is equal to the average variable cost. Already you know the content in there. The sum of the private benefit and external benefit. Then we continue. A type of inflation where economy experiences high rates of unemployment, high rates of inflation, and low economic growth. And then number 5, South African citizens traveling within the borders of the country. And then number 6, the permanent destruction of trees and forest. That worth 6 marks. So let's check. Firstly, we have a long run or long term for 1 mark. We have the shutdown. And then we have social benefits. Then we have stagflation. We have domestic tourism. And then we have deforestation. That one worth 6 marks, 111. So let's check here now on the section B where you are required only to list. So name 2 types of costs that are used to calculate total cost of a business. Remember, it doesn't say any 2, it says 2, meaning there are only 2. So in the we have variable cost, and then we have what we call the fixed cost. Remember, total cost is a sum of both variable cost and fixed cost. Name any 2 ways of measuring inflation, meaning if ever the question says any 2, that simply means to you there are more than 2. And then let's check, we have indexes, which is CPI, PPI, consumer price index, as well as producer price index. We have weighting, which is the basket of goods and services. And then we have inflation rate. Then name any 2 examples of perfect markets. It will be very discouraging and disturbing if you candidates fail to answer these kinds of questions because they are very simple. You find the person mentioning the totally wrong thing in here. We saw that in our preparatory examination. You need to avoid those things because the simple question, sometimes you take it very light and get the answer wrong. So ensure that you understand the question, you bring back the content, you answer the content correctly. Agricultural sector, we have stock exchange, and then we have foreign exchange market. Name any 2 major international agreements on sustainable development. Then in there we have Rio de Janeiro, we have a Johannesburg Summit, we have a Kyoto Protocol, we have COP17, and then there are so many, Basel Convention, the Stockholm Conference. There's a long list that we can provide in there. Give any 2 examples of fixed cost. So if the question says any, that means it's more than 2, but you must just provide 2. Do not waste your time because you will only be marked out of 2. And then we have insurance. We know that insurance remains fixed for the given period of time. Insurance premiums. And then rent, lease contract or property taxes, they remain fixed for the given period of time. And then we have depreciation. And then we have salaries. But then there can be a long list of fixed costs. It depends on what you will be providing in case the question comes into the examination. Give 2 reasons for growth in tourism industry in South Africa. The weak exchange rate. So our tourism industry have grown because of our exchange rate is very weak, meaning foreign tourists, I find it very cheap to tour to South Africa because our currency is too cheap and accessible. The world in one country. And then a peaceful transition of democracy. We know that it has had a huge impact. The pleasant climate, so people sometimes will tour because they want to enjoy themselves with the good climate condition. Relaxation of visa or regulations. Because of less regulation that are imposed, people find it easy to tour or to travel from one country to another, from their countries to South Africa, because regulations have been relaxed or eased. There are some reasons that you can mention. Name any 2 groups of workers that benefit from minimum wages. Remember, minimum wages is a part of our market failures. We talk about farm workers are the part of beneficiaries in there. We talk about domestic workers are the part of beneficiaries in there. And then expanded public works program also benefit from the minimum wage law. Remember, if we talk of the minimum wage, we talk about the lowest wage that workers should not be paid below in a certain industry. That is done by the government as a part of a redistribution of income and wealth. They're trying to reduce economic inequalities. If ever minimum wage is in place, what happens? There will be a high supply of labor because workers or people will be interested to work due to the fact that they will be earning reasonable salaries. However, if ever minimum wage has been imposed, that will lead to high level of retrenchment and unemployment, because firms will find it very expensive to employ workers if ever they have to pay them more money. So labor costs become relatively expensive. Then what will be done? The government can intervene to regulate the situation by doing what? By offering employment subsidies to businesses so that they can meet them halfway. So there will be excess supply of labor. There will be more supply of labor within the labor market, but the demand for labor will be declining, resulting to high level of retrenchment and unemployment, because firms will be finding it very much expensive or costly to employ workers. So it is having a good effect within the society, because people will be affording their basic needs. Living standards will be improved, poverty will be reduced, labor will not be exploited, whereby they work for more hours and earn less income. But then there are some effects on the side of firms, because they are not encouraged. It becomes more expensive for them to produce, which even cause inflation, if you can link. So we talk about farm workers, domestic workers, expanded public work programs, as well as leadership agreements workers. Name any two international problems to environmental sustainability. We have about 5 of them. If you can list, we talk about biodiversity loss or the loss of biodiversity. We talk about the hazardous waste. We talk about the chemical waste. We talk about climate change. And then we talk about the loss of indigenous knowledge. Remember, this can also be a long question in your examination. If we talk about biodiversity loss, we talk about the loss of species, the loss of flora and fauna, living and non-living things, the death of animals and plants that we interact with. And then also hazardous waste. In this case, we refer to the waste of material that is toxic and also that takes time to decompose in the environment. That includes the likes of cardboards, bottles, and plastics. And then chemical waste, we talk about disposal of chemicals into the running water or into the land surface, which result to animals and human beings, including plants, dying that have contact with those chemicals. And then we talk about the climate change, which refers to unpredictable change in weather pattern that can last for a long term. And then loss of indigenous knowledge. In this case, we refer to the way in which we lose that basic information that was used to live before, that information that did not rely on chemicals, but it was mainly used as for the standard for people to live. It was mainly self-sufficient. It was not damaging or dangerous into the environment. But lately, we are using most of technology that is very much damaging to the environment and also dangerous to the environment. That is leading to us slightly shifting away from indigenous knowledge and shifting to latest technology, which help business to produce more goods at the lower cost per unit. So that is what we call the loss of indigenous knowledge. How are consumers affected? So in this case, we go straight to make the order. How are consumers affected by the price leadership? Remember, we go straight to what we call oligopoly here under imperfect markets. Remember, oligopoly is the market structure that exists when few large firms exist in the market. So we say, how are consumers affected by the price leadership? Remember, we start from the price leader. The price leader can be the firm with at least more market share within the industry, or it can be a firm that can understand market forces and signals better than any other firm within the industry. That can be a price leader. So you must be very careful. There are two ways for one to determine the price leader. The firm is well informed about market signals. Whenever the firm is making a decision, other firms find it more profitable. So those firms can decide to copy the strategy by that other firm without any formal agreement. And then also it can be because the firm is having high level of market share within the industry. The firm is known to be a dominant firm. So how does it affect consumers? If ever firms are very much dependent or reliant on each other, one firm make a profitable decision, other firms are copying the decision, that will lead to consumers to be affected negatively because their choices will be compromised. If firms are copying each other's strategies within the market, that will always lead to the reduced competition because consumers will not be finding it easy to compare, especially pricing, because if one firm increase the price, maybe other firms will do the same. If one firm decrease the price, other firms can do the same. So for that sake, the competition will be reduced, which will be exploiting consumers within the oligopolist market. Consumers will lose out, affected negatively, if the dominant firm decide to increase their prices. All other firms will do the same. Remember, the price leader is the firm that will always act in prior, then other firms will copy the strategy. Be very mindful. In this case, we are talking about an implicit collusion that is known as a tacit collusion or hidden collusion. There is no formal discussion between firms here to say, I will move like this, then do the same. No, one firm make the profitable decision, other firms copy the strategy so that they avoid losing out within the market. How is the reduction of taxes linked to the demand pull inflation? Remember, if we talk about the demand pull inflation, we refer to the demand that increases because of, inflation that occurs because of an increase in aggregate demand, which increase more than aggregate supply. So, if ever there are lower taxes within the economy, what happens? If taxes have been reduced, especially let's say the personal income tax has been reduced, that will lead to high level of disposable income available. So if there's more disposable income, we know that people are always tempted to spend. They spend the money they don't even have sometimes. So if ever there's more disposable income available, then people will decide to spend. As they spend more, you find that supply challenges exist or supply constraints exist. So firms cannot afford to supply what is being demanded by consumers. And that will lead to the inflation because prices will be increasing. So excess demand will always lead to the inflation. So if taxes have been lowered, there will be greater demand for goods and services. Talking about also indirect taxes such as VAT, if value-added taxes have been reduced, that will lead to people affording more goods and services. So there will be more demand for goods, resulting to the fact that the demand will be increasing faster than the aggregate supply, resulting to inflation. It increases household disposable income, therefore aggregate demand for goods and services will increase. How do inflation affect investors positively? So if ever there's high inflation, how can that affect investors? Remember, investment can be done in two ways. There are those that invest on flexible nominal values and those that invest on fixed nominal values. For some people, if ever inflation increases, they yield greater returns on their investments. So let's check. They are able to build wealth as the value of the fixed asset will rise with or increase more than inflation. Higher returns on investment. So investors will be benefiting because their investment will be able to reap even more returns. What is the effect of emission of greenhouse gases into the environment? If ever there are greenhouse gases or air pollution into the environment, that will lead to what? That will lead to the damage of ecosystem and result to global warming as well as climate change. That's it. So let's see. Greenhouse gases damages the ozone layer and ecosystem, resulting to global warming as well as the climate change. So why do businesses in the perfect market structure only make economic profit in the short term or short run? So remember, only make economic profit. Remember, if we talk of economic profit, we also refer to the supernormal profit. Don't be confused by the concept if you come across it in the examination. So there are these two things. We have entry of firms and exit of firms, right? So when do we have firms entering the market? When do we have firms leaving the market? It is very important for you to remember that. Remember that when the business enters the market, it becomes more innovative. It brings new ideas to attract the attention of consumers. By doing that, consumers will always be finding it easy to flow into the new business that have entered the market and explore, and that will lead to the firm enjoying the profit. Perfect market entry is free. In the long run, new firms or businesses would enter the market, which then rises the competition. The rise in the market competition shrink or reduce a long run profit. So we say in the long run, firms will get a chance to enter and compete in the market, and that will be reducing what we call profit enjoyed by business. Meaning, in the short run, there's no much entry of businesses, but in the long run, firms will be free, will be entering the market at the large capacity, increasing the competition. Then you know that if ever there's more competition, each business will have smaller portion to produce within the market. That can also be explained graphically, where we talk about the entry and exit of firms. Why is it difficult for firms to enter oligopoly market? Remember, under oligopoly, barriers to entry exist to prevent the entry of some businesses. Those barriers to entry can either be natural or artificial. Oligopoly market is protected by barriers to entry, which include the high capital requirement. Infant businesses, therefore, find it difficult to enter the market. How is branding used to increase market share by firms? We know that businesses, especially under oligopoly and monopolistic, use branding to make their goods appear more superior than other goods of competitors. They use branding to make their goods appear more good and beautiful than those of the competitors. So some people or consumers or customers have this thing that we call the brand loyalty. They go for the brand regardless of what is being said about the brand, and that give the brand an advantage of being well acknowledged within the market. So businesses sell products that are slightly different from those of their competitors to make them stand out. Branding is conducted based on opinion of customers to make their opinion matter. If ever consumers are suggesting something about the brand, business happen to take those ideas and implement them, which will be attracting consumers even to be more attached on that particular brand because they have contributed. That will always make the brand appear more superior than those of other competitors. Building customer loyalty where consumers or customers choose the firm's product over that of competitors. And then here is the data response. It is very important for you to be able to link in these questions that are the part of middle order where we ask the likes of how, what impact, and why. You must be able to link in there, know your content and derive it back to link based on the question statement. Then it will be easy for you. So data response in section B here, we continue. We talk about the competition commission to probe pricing of fresh fruit. It is very important for you to know the content of this before you go further. Remember, the Commission Policy Act of South Africa was formed to ensure healthy competition within South Africa, ensuring that competition is increased and also allow infant industries as well as SMEs to enter and compete in the market, to protect consumers from being exploited by producers over high prices, to enforce economic growth. So those are some objectives of the Commission Policy Act. And also this Commission Policy Act is having 3 bodies that were formed to ensure that there is healthy competition within the economy in South Africa, namely the Competition Commission, which is just mentioned here, and then the Commission Tribunal as well as the Commission Appeals Court. Remember that Commission is the one that is fully responsible to do the primary investigation of alleged misconduct by some businesses. It's either maybe there is a suspicion of collusion, or maybe illegal merge, or maybe the sale of some businesses that seems to be illegal or not good, that will maybe become an issue within the economy. Or also, remember, they do the primary investigation. After that, they collect findings, and then they suggest the fine if they discover the firm guilty of misconduct. Then they transfer those findings to the Commission Tribunal, and then the Commission Tribunal will do its own investigation to discover if really these findings by the Commission are correct or wrong. After doing its own investigation, it will then decide either to accept findings by the Commission. If ever they were correct, the findings will be accepted, even the penalty will be accepted or may be adjusted. After that, the firm will be fined. If ever the firm that has been found guilty is unhappy with the fine, the firm has the power to go to the Tribunal Appeals Court and appeal in there. So then the Tribunal Appeals Court, remember, acts as the High Court of Competition in South Africa. It will do its own investigations on those findings, and then after, if ever the firm is found indeed guilty, and then the penalty will stand, and then charges will remain. But if ever the firm is not found guilty by the Commission Tribunal, Appeals Court, that will mean there will be withdrawal of charges that are imposed. Remember, it is very important for you to be able to explain in the higher order here the success and the failures of the Commission Policy Act of South Africa. Also, remember the following: the Commission will do its primary investigation. Who actually charges businesses? The one that is responsible to charge businesses that are guilty of misconduct is the Competition Tribunal, not Commission. Commission will still have to transfer its findings to the Competition Tribunal. Then Tribunal is the one responsible to lay charges. Keep that in your mind, because you might be confused when you get there into the examination. So it is very important for you to be able to analyze if ever the Commercial Policy Act of South Africa has been successful or not. Remember, in your prelims for Gauteng, you came across the question talking about big insurance companies that are under investigation of fixing premiums. Keep that in your mind. It is very important that we are fully informed about that. Know the success, know the failure. Having to form these three bodies is a part of the success of the of the Commercial Policy Act of South Africa. Some failures are there because we know that as much as they've been trying to ensure that consumers are not exploited to higher prices, but since 2020, through COVID, we have been seeing excessively increasing in prices. Also, barriers to entry still exist within the market where we come across monopolies and oligopolies blocking the entry of new business with those high requirements. So that is a part of failure. But let's go on. I was just sharing to you the deeper part of this content that we come across here in section B, or data response. So the Commercial Commission seeks to investigate pricing and fair play in the fresh fruit market. The Commission will investigate the effect of where producers have engaged in unethical trading techniques that impede, restrict, or distort competition. Adjusted from The Witness, February 17, 2023. Name the institution responsible for investigating unethical commercial behaviors. Which institution's roles in the competition policy is similar to that of High Court? Briefly explain the term collusion. What do the South African government want to achieve with commercial policy? And then how does price fixing disadvantage small and medium enterprises in the fresh fruit businesses? That is for 10 marks all in all. Then let's check. And then the Commission is the one that will be investigating unethical competitive behavior. Then who charges, remember, is Competition Tribunal. Which institution's role in the commission policy? And then in there, we have the Competition Appeals Court or Tribunal's Appeals Court. Remember, it works as a high court. Briefly explain the term collusion. So let's see what is being mentioned here. There's different definitions in there, but there are main concepts in there. An arrangement between businesses within the aim, with the aim of limiting competition between them by fixing prices. Whenever firms collude, they get together and make common decisions. It's either they meet with the formal agreement and discussion, or there is no formal discussion, but they act commonly. So remember, if we talk about the collusion, you refer to both implicit collusion as well as explicit collusion. Don't be confused by a concept in there whenever terminologies are coming in. We talk about implicit collusion, which is known as a tacit collusion or hidden collusion. It occurs under the price leadership process. There is no formal discussion or agreement between businesses that are competing. We talk about explicit collusion. In there, there's a formal agreement between firms. So in there, if we talk about explicit collusion, we refer that to an overt collusion. So there's a formal agreement between firms whereby they get together and discuss price fixing and production techniques. So in that case, it occurs under what we call cartels. What's a cartel? The cartel can be a part of association of firms within the same industry where they meet to discuss pricing as well as production techniques. Each and every firm under cartels has a say, because if you are the member, then decision is being made, then maybe you are overpowered by votes. Even if you disagree, you will end up agreeing because you don't have a choice. The majority have agreed upon the price. That's a part of cartels or associations between firms within the similar industry where they meet to discuss the pricing and production techniques so that they can keep their profits high at the expense of consumers. And then what do South African government want to achieve? Let's see, to promote efficiency of economy. That's the main aim, to ensure that there's economic efficiency. And then provide consumers with competitive prices and variety of products, ensuring that there's a huge competition available in the market, encouraging South Africa to participate in world markets and accept foreign competition in South Africa, ensuring that there are FDIs in South Africa, and also local firms can be able to compete internationally. Enable SMME, small, micro, and medium enterprises, to participate in the economy by removing some restrictions to allow the previous disadvantage to increase their ownership of businesses within the economy, to promote employment. So there are so many answers that can be mentioned here. How does the price fixing disadvantage small businesses within the economy? Price fixing will increase the cost of small and medium enterprise, resulting in high prices for consumers. And then also high prices will then lead to decline in customers, which will result to businesses making losses and eventually shutting down. We know that if ever there is what we call the collusion, small businesses then are forced to follow the entire agreement, only to find that they find it difficult to compete with those large businesses within the economy or the market. Then they can even be pushed out of the market because they produce at the higher cost per unit, and then they find themselves not having a good competitive edge because they are competing with big businesses within the industry. So the collusion will always disadvantage them and push them out of the market because they will end up making economic losses. Here we come across market failures data response. We have subsidies in here. The provision of subsidies as a consequence of market failure, where the state intervened by providing subsidies to businesses. What actually happens here? If the government intervenes in the market by providing production subsidies to businesses, the businesses will get an advantage. They will find it very cheap to produce goods and services because they are given a cash or grant for them to finance themselves and produce more goods and services. So it will result to business producing more goods and services at the lowest possible cost, which will always lead to them supplying even more. That's why you come across the supply increasing faster than the demand. We see the supply was S here, but now is S1, meaning the supply is increasing more than the demand. Remember, if ever the supply increases faster than the demand, that will be pushing prices down from P going down to P1. So the price will be decreasing, meaning consumers will be benefiting because the cost of production was lower, meaning the selling price will also be lower for this particular product because it was given the production subsidy by the government. So what happens then in this case? If ever there's a production subsidy given by the government to the business will produce more goods and services at the lower cost. And then also there will be high level of supply within the market. At the same time, consumers will be benefiting because prices will be dropping down like we have seen here due to the fact that subsidies are given to businesses. That will be improving standards of living within the economy or within the society. And then also there will be also more affordability of goods and services. Most of people will be able to participate in the economic mainstream by demanding goods and services. That is the effect of subsidies. Remember, this is also a part of an essay under market failures where we talk about the consequence of market failures as a part of the state intervention. It is very important for you to look thoroughly at this graph and see if ever the subsidy is given, the supply will always increase faster than the demand, pushing prices down, increases the quantity produced in that case, and then quantity supplied. And then identify the market price from the graph above. Name any one example of direct subsidy. Briefly describe the term subsidy. Explain the benefit of subsidies to producers. Use the above graph to explain the effect of subsidy on the consumer. So if you know your content coming across this data response, you bring it all back like I've just mentioned when I was interpreting and explaining the subsidy as a whole. Then you go to questions. You simply jump into questions, then you get answers correct. Identification, that is P, and then name any one example of direct subsidy, that's a cash grant. And then interest-free loans, and then briefly describe the term, the subsidy. We talk about financial assistance by the government to consumers and to producers of goods and services. So if we talk about the direct subsidy, we refer to the cash or grant given by the government to producing business so that they can produce more goods and services at the lower cost. And then how do subsidies benefit the producer? We have seen on the graph, subsidies help the producer to reduce the cost of production for the producer, and the producer will produce more goods. So with the subsidy given, there will be a lower cost of production and also more goods will be produced by the producer. Use the graph above to explain the effect of subsidy. The provision of a subsidy will reduce the price paid by consumers to decrease to P1. We have seen that happening on the graph. And then the quantity demanded will increase from Q to Q1. We have seen that because the price has dropped. Then also we have here the data response on the environmental sustainability in here. We have this precious water is mine, then too much supervision is bad for this economy. And then let's sort this out later. And then that looks like a healthy river to me. And then EU member states, we see them in there. And then, so this is sourced from the support.net. So we are giving the data response here on the environmental sustainability. It is very important for you also, if you come across such data response, that you derive the content, you bring it back. You think about the pollution that can occur, which can include the land, water, air pollution. And then also you think about all concepts related to what we call environment, conservation, preservation. We talk about the what we call it, the burning of the fossil fuels done by industries, which damages ecosystem. You talk about the state intervening to protect environment. You talk about also the likes of the market having to be able to protect the environment. It's a lot that you can bring back here, but then you go to questions. Identify environmental problem depicted on the cartoon above. Name a type of text that can be used to reduce environmental problems depicted above. Briefly explain the term hazardous waste. What can be done to reverse the effect of biodiversity loss? Why are European Union's members reluctant to address environmental problems? That gives you 10 marks all in all if you put it together. It is very important for you to note this 4 marks question, because we know that those developed countries are reluctant to adapt to new requirements, because they know that they are mostly productive. As they produce more goods and services, they are burning fossil fuel, which causes even more pollution, but that increase their economy at our expense as developing countries. And then identify environmental problem. That's what called water pollution, and then air pollution, and then soil pollution, even the land pollution. Name a type of tax that can be used to reduce environmental problem depicted above. We talk about the green tax or carbon tax or environmental taxes. Brief explain the term hazardous waste. Waste product that take time to decompose and are dangerous or toxic to human and animal life. That's what we call hazardous waste. And then what can be done to reverse the effects of biodiversity loss? Modern techniques such as gene transplant can help to limit the loss of species. And then monitoring and regulation of trade and endangered species by using permits and quotas. And then why are European countries or union members reluctant to address environmental problems? Many states in the European Union benefit from the factories that causes this water and air pollution through their increase in countries' gross domestic product and employment of their citizens. Like I've mentioned, that they are benefiting a lot because they improve their productivity at the expense of developing countries as they burn fossil fuels. Many investors, entrepreneurs make large amount of capital available, which will benefit their country's macro objectives. The government's tax bases are increased because of the factories producing and paying taxes, as well as laborers paying income taxes. And then we are given another data response. So that was about environmental sustainability. Remember, if you go in there, we have the definitions or the explanation of the entire concept of environmental sustainability, whereby environment is being protected. Some measures are taken to ensure that environment is taken care of and protected or well sustained. In there, we talk about environmental problem, where we refer to types of pollution that occur within the environment, which can cause environmental degradation. And then we talk about the likes of the climate change, global warming. We talk about the likes of erosion. We talk about the likes of deforestation, as well as desertification. After that, we go straight to the two concepts that are very important for you, which is conservation and preservation. That's when now the state or the private sector takes care of what we call of natural resources, so that they remain intact even for future generation. That's when even cultures are maintained or kept intact or alive even for future generations, so that the benefit that we can derive or achieve from the environment can also be achieved by the future generation. It is very important for you to be able to distinguish between the two, conservation as well as preservation. It's also important for you to be able to evaluate the success of the government on ensuring conservation as well as preservation. And then we jump further to the market. We say the market is a problem into the environment, because the market see natural resources or environment as what we call as a common resource where the wealth can be created. So the market always see this land, this environment as the main resource where they can extract resources for them to make even more profit. So the market becomes a problem. However, the market can be a solution to facilitate these issues. How can that happen? It can happen if the market can adapt to the new technology that is eco-friendly. And then we talk about the state intervention to ensure environmental sustainability, which is the part of your essay. In that case, we talk about the granting of property rights. We seem to emphasize that people normally take off what belongs to them. So if people are given property rights, they will always protect what belongs to them. We talk about environmental taxes that can be imposed to businesses or individuals that are polluting environment. We talk about issuing environmental subsidies to those companies or businesses that are using eco-friendly equipment or machines, to those that are sustaining environment, to those that are busy dealing with what we call recycling to protect or to prevent the waste of resources or used materials into the environment. And then we talk about the lack of linking education to the environment so that awareness can be created to people and they will be informed about the importance of the environment. We talk about government departments being able to take a part on this, a part of protecting environment. And also we talk about the lack of recycling is a part of it. We know it occurs and is also emphasized. So we talk about also the command and control policy that talks to the quality standards, the quantity standards, as well as social impact. Then you go straight to international problems. That's why we talk about the loss of biodiversity or biodiversity loss, hazardous waste, chemical waste, indigenous knowledge loss, as well as climate change. Then we go straight to the international problems where we talk about the likes of Rio de Janeiro, Rio 5, and then Johannesburg Summit, COP17, and then Basel Convention, etc. That is the entire content. But then you need to go bigger if you want to answer question 3 in this case, and then as well as question 4, including question number 6. Okay. Here you were given inflation. So this goes straight to inflation. Remember, your inflation topic is one of the most enjoyable topics that we have done in this section. So it is very important for you to know your inflation target, which ranges between 3 to 6% in South Africa. It is very important for you to remember that South African Reserve Bank is fully responsible to control inflation using the monetary policy in South Africa. It is also important for you to know the effect of the inflation, that if ever the inflation is high, the buying power parity of money will be dropping. So the money will losing its buying power or losing the value, leading to people affording even less goods and services. So here, what is the problem? The problem is that as inflation increases, the buying power parity of money declines and people end up affording less goods and services. Mostly vulnerable people or people with fixed or stable income, such as pensioners, as well as people with disabilities that depend on government support or financial support, will find themselves being really affected negatively because their money remain constant, but they can afford less goods and services, meaning it results to even more poverty and undermine their standards of living. So there are different types of inflation that we can talk about. Then, how do we measure inflation? We use the consumer price index, producer price index, weighting, and then inflation rate. Then we continue also on this one. We go straight to 2 causes of inflation, namely the demand pull inflation and the cost push inflation. It is very important for you to know those, especially for the likes of 8 marks. The demand pull inflation, remember, it occurs when aggregate demand increases faster than aggregate supply. And then the cost push inflation occurs when there's an increase in the cost of production within the industries. And then after that, you go straight to the effects of inflation. What are the consequences? That's your section C. And then we go straight to the measures to combat inflation, which include fiscal measures, monetary measures, as well as other measures. So there's a problem as inflation. And then what can be done? I mean, what are the consequences? We provide them. And then what can be done? We must reduce inflation, or we must combat inflation by using monetary measures and fiscal measures, as well as other measures, so that people living standard cannot be undermined. So in this case, we are faced by inflation from 2020, 21, and 22. Then you can see that inflation here is just in 2022 is just at 6%, meaning it is at the target, in the maximum target. It should not increase above the target or go below the target. For that sake, there must be intervention by the government as well as the central bank. This is adapted from the Google. Then let's check questions in here and see. Identify the inflation rate in the second quarter of 2020. It was 4.5%. What is the inflation target set by South African Reserve Bank? Is between 3 to 6%. It is between 3 to. It is not 3%. You must be very careful. Some of your answers are disturbing. You say it's 6%, or you say it's 3%. No, it is between, or it ranges between 3 to 6%. Briefly describe the term demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation occurs when there's too much money chasing too few goods. Occurs when aggregate demand increases further than aggregate supply, pushing prices up. And then we continue. Explain the effect of high inflation rate to poor people. Goods and services become more expensive and unfavorable for the poor, meaning people afford less. The poor may not be able to satisfy their needs and wants, leading to an absolute poverty and low standards of living. How is inflation bad? How is deflation bad for the economy? You must also know we are always talking about inflation, but deflation also is an issue, because if we are faced by deflation, we'll come across a situation whereby investors withdraw or run away from the country's economy. Deflation discourages production of, and results to disinvestment. Excessive decrease in prices has an effect of excessive demand and the market shortages. High fixed costs such as labor can cause economic loss for business during the deflation. Remember, if ever deflation occurs, you find that there are some fixed costs that cannot easily be adjusted. So business will be remaining with those high fixed costs to pay for, while they are producing goods at the higher cost, and also they are receiving less revenues because goods are too cheap. That will lead to withdrawals of investment from South African economy. Business will be running away from our economy if ever faced by what we call a deflation. And then these are 8 marks questions, some of them. Use the graph. Let's see the graph first. Use the graph of total cost and total revenue to explain profit maximization. It is very important that you are able to draw this graph. This graph has been seen more and more in our examinations, but it's been ignored before. For this graph, you simply maximize the profit using total revenue and total cost. Remember, at point A here and point B here, we have what we call the normal profit, or the firm is breaking even there, because both total revenues are equal to the total cost. But then where do we maximize the profit? We maximize the profit where total cost furthers away from the total revenue. Then the profit will be maximized. It is very important for you to be able to draw the graph. After that, interpret the graph to score 8 marks. And then let's look at the explanation for the graph. At all points where total revenue is above the total cost, the firm is making the profit. At all points where total cost is above total revenue, the firm is making economic loss. The gap between TR and TC represent the profit. Profit is maximized where the gap between TR and TC is the greatest. This occurs at the quantity 4. Any other correct response is accepted. So remember, if you draw the graph, you provide the heading. After that, you draw your graph, complete your graph, then you interpret your graph. You are not given the mark allocation for the graph. You are given the sum, which is 8 marks, but be aware that 4 marks for explanation and 4 marks for drawing. So don't draw the graph and leave it unexplained. You will be losing marks. And then here we go, under oligopoly. With the aid of graph, explain why oligopolies will not charge higher price or lower price to gain market share. It is very important for you to know the following. The oligopoly is represented by the Kennedy demand curve with 2 segments, namely the top segment and the bottom segment. Top segment is relatively elastic and bottom segment is relatively inelastic. What's the reason for that? The reason for this is as follows. Firstly, note the following. At point B, we have a collusive price where firms are charging the same price. If one firm within the same market decides to charge the price above 50, what will happen? While other firms are still charging the price at 50, consumers will be reluctant to demand, or the demand for this particular product from this firm will be declining. Why? Because other firms are still selling the same product at the lower possible cost, which is 50 Rand. So consumers will find no incentive from buying the product at 90 Rand and affording less units, while they can still buy the product at 50 Rand and afford more units from other competitors. So that will lead to the decline of the demand for this particular product and lead to the firm gaining less revenues. And then we go down also. The bottom segment now. That simply means for the top segment AB, consumers become very sensitive to the price increase if ever other firms are selling at the lower cost, selling the same product. Then the bottom one, consumers become less sensitive here. Why? It is because if ever a firm can decide to lower the price, it is possible that other firms can copy the strategy by lowering their prices to avoid losing their market share. By doing so, any expected profit or gain by this firm will be lost immediately because the increase in the quantity demanded will only be at the margin of 5, resulting to the firm not enjoying much revenues. Remember, firms will always be reluctant to lower their prices to 20 from 50 because their revenues will be decreasing. They will also be reluctant to increase their price from 50 to 90 because that will result to the decrease in demand and also decrease in total revenues. How do you answer these questions? It is very important for you to calculate the total revenue first. So total revenue is price times quantity. So point A, price is 90, and then 8 units of 10. So this is our point A. Then we say P times Q, 90 times 10 is 900. So let's check now. We have to compare the point A to point B. At point B, the price is 50, and then the quantity is 30. So we'll say 50 times 30, we get 1,500. Okay, now we have something to say. At point A, we got 900. Point B, we are getting 1,500. So first, you have an answer now that it will be difficult for the firm, or firms will be reluctant to increase their prices to 90 because they will be losing their profits and revenues if ever they increase their prices to 90, because 50 rand give them 1,500 revenues. And then the oligopoly firm can choose to sell its goods at 50 rand because it can get even more revenues or profit. Selling the product at 90 rand results to the firm earning less total revenues. Therefore, the firm will rather sell at 50 than 90 rand. So this is the chosen 50 than 90 because 90 is too high and it will lead to consumers demanding even less of the product and look for alternative from other competitors. And then why are equilibrium position for the perfect competitor not sustainable in the long run? So let's check. Profits are signals for the entry of new businesses and extension of current businesses. Remember, if ever businesses are enjoying profits, that will be attracting more business to enter and compete in the market. And then new technology develops daily, leading to increase in supply in the market. So the quantity offered by business in the market increases, indicating mass production. And then the increase in the supply leads to a decrease in price due to lower cost per unit because we have been faced by what we call the mass production above. So that will push prices down. And then we'll continue. All businesses in the industry will make normal profit and produce at the minimum of the long-term average cost curve. And then the economic loss will lead to some business leaving the market and the supply will decrease. As remember, as the business leave the market supply will decrease, encouraging existing firms that have remained in the market to even produce more, which will be pushing their profits high because the number of competitors in the market have declined. The decrease in the supply will lead to the increase in price until it is at the same level as the long run average cost. If businesses are able to turn their losses to profit, they will make normal profits over a long run. Any other correct answer is accepted for 8 marks. Remember, in this kind of the question, you must answer in full sentences. Do not list. Draw a well-labeled graph to illustrate the long run equilibrium for the monopoly. Remember, if we talk about the monopoly makes economic profit or supernormal profit in both short run and the long run. However, you must be very careful. If ever you come across the question saying, is it possible for the monopolist firm to make economic loss in the long run? It is possible only if its average costs are greater than average revenues. You need to be flexible. Because they happen to make economic loss. You have seen that. No. So in this case, the long run equilibrium for the firm are under the monopoly. Remember, in there, we simply focus on the monopoly. Check the following, that is very important for you. For you to discover your revenues, we have drawn our long run marginal revenue. We have drawn our long run average revenue. Remember, it's a long run, so there must be LMR, LAC. So it is very important to note the following point. This point here on your average revenue or demand curve indicates your revenues, meaning your revenues are equal to 6. And then this point here where your AC is turning, long run average cost is turning, that indicate your cost, which is 4. So it is very important that you know that. And then we maximize the profit at point down there at point C because MC equals to our LMR. Then the graph alone was for 8 marks. You can see allocation of marks in there. It is very important that you label here on your axis, and then labeling of your axis is very important also. Ensuring that your AC curve turns at the right point, avoiding confusion. Avoid saying this is MC and this is AC. Ensure that you study your graph thoroughly, because you will be required to draw graphs tomorrow. How can the government promote South Africa as a tourist destination? So improving infrastructure suitable for tourism, e.g. transport and accommodation facilities, that can help a lot. Developing new tourist attraction sites to cater for even more tests, and then improving the existing of tourist attraction sites for them to stay relevant to current times, and then reducing the level of crime in the country to make tourists safe at all times. And then also advertising the country as a good tourist destination in variety of local and international media, hosting major international events such as BRICS conference in 2023, creating a stable political environment, and then promote excellence amongst businesses in the tourism industry by rewarding them if ever they're doing even well. That was for 8 marks. And then the other question for the graph, now we go straight to the inflation. With the aid of any level graph, discuss the demand pool inflation. It is very important that you know the following. If we talk about the demand pool inflation graph, that simply means there must be increase in the demand. Aggregate demand must increase further than aggregate supply. We can see that originally we have AS, we have AD, and then we have the midpoint here, which is equilibrium at Q. And then as the demand increases more than the supply, it will be shifting to AD1. There it goes, and the supply doesn't respond or reply. It remains constant at AS. That simply means now price will be pushed down, and then as the price, they will be pushed up from P to P1. You see the new price there, and then new equilibrium is created at E1, and then the quantity demanded increases, but the quantity supply remains constant at Q. That leads to the demand pool inflation. You must be able to draw this graph. We haven't seen most of this graph in the examination, but you will never know. Tomorrow, you might be surprised. And then demand pool inflation occurs when aggregate demand increases faster than aggregate supply. The graph illustrates the increase in aggregate demand from AD to AD1 and single aggregate supply, meaning it remains constant. As aggregate demand increases to AD1, the price level and the production output will also increase until the full employment is reached. The initial increase in the demand will have a positive influence on the production, employment, and income. But when the full capacity has been reached, further increase in the demand will push prices up. And then we'll continue with the discussion question. How can monetary policy be used to combat inflation? So we are talking about measures to combat inflation now here. Remember, it's a part of your essay. South African Reserve Bank can use monetary policy by increasing interest rate or repo rate so that there will be, credit will become even more expensive and decrease money supply. Remember, this will result to the adjustment of money supply. It will be adjusted down and resulting to less demand for goods and services. Also, open market transaction, Reserve Bank can intervene by selling bonds in the open market, which is the activity that occurs between commercial banks and the South African Reserve Bank. As the Reserve Bank sell bonds to what you call to the commercial banks, the money supply will be taken away from the circulation, resulting to commercial banks remaining with less money, and then less loans will be created and less credit will be created, and then there will be less demand for goods and services. And then we continue with the same question. And then reducing the level of credit through the moral persuasion or moral suasion. The Reserve Bank can intervene by instructing commercial banks to be very strict when issuing creating credit. Because economic condition is not good. Remember, if ever credit is not highly created within the market, there will be less demand for goods and services. And then increasing credit reserves. Remember, if ever credit reserve increases, there will be increased vault money within the commercial banks or financial institutions. Remember, vault money is the money that is available for bank but not available to spend. They cannot use it to create credit for that sake. So there will be less money supply available and less credit creation in the economy, and that will lead to less demand for goods and services. Applying moral suasion have been mentioned, whereby commercial banks are instructed to be very strict when creating credit within the economy. Briefly discuss fiscal policy as a measure to combat inflation. We are continuing with measures to combat inflation. Remember, it's a part of your section C, can also be section B. And then the question is now, we discuss fiscal policy as measure to combat inflation, meaning the government must intervene now, not Reserve Bank. What can the government do to deal with the government spending? It should cut down or reduce government spending, basically on wages and salaries, also cancelling some infrastructure projects that were in place so that there will be less employment opportunities, less disposable income, and less demand for goods and services. Government can decrease its borrowing to finance its expenses and cut the budget. And then that can reduce quantity of money available in circulation and money allocated for budget, and there will be less demand for goods and services. Government through the central bank can buy or sell bonds to increase or decrease available cash that can be used for consumption. And then we continue with taxation. So the state can increase tax here. Different kinds of tax can be increased. Increasing direct taxes such as income tax and property tax to reduce disposable income and cap excessive demand for goods and services. There will be less demand for goods if ever taxes have been increased. Increasing indirect taxes such as VAT or value-added tax and tax on fuel and liquor will increase the cost of living and will reduce the demand for goods and services. So if ever indirect taxes have been increased, there will be less demand because goods become relatively expensive, and then the demand for those goods will be decreasing. Implementing surcharges on imported goods will curb spending on imported goods. Differentiate between conservation and preservation. So the conservation is the act of creating standards of conduct that outline the production and careful management or proper use of natural resources. When we conserve, we want to ensure that our natural resources are used in a proper way, because some of them are renewable, some of them are non-renewable. So it is very important to use them wisely. Even if they are renewable, we must use them in a manner that will keep them sustained, because if we can overuse them now, for instance, we cut down forest for the sake of production, it will take time for them to be ready for being used again. So they must be used wisely regardless if they are renewable or non-renewable. It is applied in game parks, botanical gardens, etc. Conservation seeks to a creative continuity of environment while ensuring that change is sympathetic to the quality of life for both the present and future generations. So if we conserve, we want to ensure that natural resources remain intact, and then the benefit that we can derive or get or achieve now or today can also be enjoyed by the future generation from the environment. Because if we happen to overconsume these resources, some of them are endangered. They are in danger of extinction. They cannot be replaced. So in that case, the future generation will never get to benefit or to enjoy benefits that we are able to enjoy at the current state if ever over consuming our natural resources. And then we continue preservation. Preservation means keeping something from being harmed, keeping something intact, or keeping something healthy so that it can even last for longer. An example is when no development takes place in a specific area to keep something intact. So non-renewable resources are irreplaceable if lost or threatened with extinction. Species of animals, bird sites, and indigenous forest, they are also in danger of extinction, so they must be preserved. Once they disappear, they are lost forever. They will never be recovered. This requires more than conservation and requires the preservation. So in that case, we are referring to taking care of our resources, keeping them healthy even for future generations, protecting those plants and animals that are in danger of extinction. How can South African government ensure environmental sustainability? So in there we go straight to the long question. It's a long question. In this one can be an essay actually. It's a part of section C, but can also be a part of section B. So how can the state ensure environmental sustainability? Can charge for the use of the environment, where producers are made to pay fee for the waste. Even households are paying fees for the waste that occur within the environment. So environmental charges. Taxing the polluters. So we talk about environmental taxes here that include the green tax or carbon taxes, whereby those that are causing pollution will be liable to tax so that the government can be able to recover the costs that have been occurred caused by the businesses. Setting standards for highest level of pollution allowed. In this case, we talk about the marketable permits that are sold by the government to ensure that business can cause pollution to the certain extent. So the business will be buying these licenses, allowing them to cause pollution. If the business does not have these licenses, it have to buy from other business or the Department of Minerals Resources. Subsidizing the anti-pollutive devices, encouraging making use of green technology, e.g. when we use bulbs that are saving energy, those can be subsidized. Also, though electrical vehicles are also subsidized because they are not burning fossil fuels. Using marketable permits where businesses buy licenses to allow a certain amount of pollution from the production process. Granting property rights, which evokes conservationist effect on people to take care of what belongs to them or taking care of the environment. And then we go straight to essays. Remember, I personally don't know the question paper. So whatever I'm doing here, I'm trying to show you how questions can come in the examination tomorrow. And then I'll be showing you all of the essays for question 5 and question 6. And I'll try to take care of all of them so that I don't give you that wrong idea to say this essay will appear in the examination. So one example will be provided for question 5. Let's say discussing detailed variance equilibrium positions with the aid of graphs under the perfect market. It's very important that you know those graphs, but I will display them at the end of the lesson. Discuss in detail the monopoly with or without graphs. So in this case, if you discuss with graph, that's when you discuss with what you call economic profit and economic loss under the monopoly. And then also without graph, that's why you discuss in detail characteristics of the monopolies. That's what you know very, very well. So it is very important for you to be able to list and discuss. And then examine the oligopoly in detail. It is very important that you know the behavior of oligopoly. Then you can be able to discuss it in detail using its characteristics and interdependence. Also, it is very important that you know that the King demand curve is a part of the equation. Compare and contrast any two types of market structures, perfect to imperfect market, imperfect to imperfect market in detail. That's why now you can be required to discuss or to compare and contrast monopoly to the perfect market to the monopolistic to the oligopoly. Remember, if we talk about the market structure, in this case, we don't give characteristics. For instance, you will say, let's say we compare monopoly to the perfect market. We say number of sellers under perfect market. Number of sellers. If you are not given the heading, you will be providing your own headings. Each heading with a mark. Number of sellers, then you explain. Under monopoly, there's only one seller that exists within the entire market. And this monopoly or business is the only supplier of the entire market. So if you go to the perfect market, number of sellers, there are many sellers that exist within the market. There's a high level of commission because the market entry is completely free. Under monopoly, there's one seller. There's no competition because the market end is completely blocked. So that's what you do. And then nature of products, you underline. That's a mark also. You tell us that under perfect market, products are homogeneous or identical. They are similar in appearance and also they satisfy the same utility. They are also perfect substitutes for each other. And then under the monopoly, the products produced are heterogeneous or unique. These are products that do not have perfect substitutes. That's how you answer. Do not use characteristic if you discuss the market structure. Keep that in your mind. And then we continue. Discuss in detail how the following factors, reasons for market failure, lead to misallocation of resources. It is very important for you to know the following. The question cannot just say discuss reasons for the market failures. It can say discuss in detail how the following can lead to misallocation of resources. So keep it in your mind then. Those are the reasons for market failures. 6 of them must be discussed, but we'll see. I think we have one of those essays in there. Discussing detailed state intervention as a consequence of market failures, with or without graphs. Also, there's a variety of graphs here to be drawn, but I will show them in here. If you're discussing state intervention, that's where we talk about the consequence of market failure in a government intervening to reduce the effect of the market failure. That's an essay also that you must take care of under the market failures. And then under economic issue, discussing detailed consequence of inflation. And then it's not a bad essay. I think you will be able to come across it. Discussing detailed measures to combat inflation. We have been doing that in section B, where we talk about fiscal measures, monetary measures, other measures that include the likes of increased productivity, improving human resource development, in the part of the supply side policies, and then also managing or controlling the currency, etc. And then these are measures to combat inflation. Examining detailed effects of tourism. You must be very careful in case you come across that question in there, because that effects of tourism as well as benefits of tourism. The content is related, but the way of answering is not exactly the same. You must ensure that you answer appropriately in there. You came across this essay in your preparatory examination and you got marks for this. So if ever it comes in the examination, it should not be a problem for you. And then these are the effects of tourism also in place. Discussing in detail how the government can ensure environmental sustainable development. That has also been discussed in our section B in there, where we talk about issuing property rights, marketable permits, and then command and control policies, environmental taxes, and then charging for environmental use, environmental subsidies, the government departments, education, etc. that have been discussed. And then discussing in detail the following problems and the intentional measures taken to ensure sustainable development. In this case, we talk about the loss of biodiversity that we spoke about, loss of indigenous knowledge, the climate change, hazardous waste, chemical waste. So let's see the essay we are having here. Obviously, these are market structures where when you have to compare market structures, it is very important that you are able to deal with the following characteristics. We have the perfect market. So if we say number of sellers, we know that under perfect market, there are many sellers. Provide reasons. Under monopoly, there is one seller. Under monopolistic, there are many sellers. Under oligopoly, there are few large firms. If ever you come across the question to compare and contrast market structures, let it be easy for you. Those will be free answers, but ensure that you answer in full sentences after providing subheadings. And then discussing detailed factors that lead to misallocation of resources. 26 marks. So these are reasons for market failure. And then let's see also additional part, examine the impact of income inequality in the economy. Let's look at the introduction. Remember, in your introduction, you define your market failures in this situation. Market failures occurs when the market is unable to achieve the efficient allocation of scarce resources and is therefore unable to achieve the best available outcome. Market failure occurs when the market misallocates resources, resulting to undersupply or oversupply of goods and services within the economy. And then we go straight to the main part body, missing markets. Remember, if we talk of missing markets, we are talking about public goods. Why we say these markets are missing? We say they are missing because the private sector or the market find it difficult to supply these goods and services. They are undersupplied by the market. They are highly desirable for social welfare, but the market undersupplied because people are not willing to pay for them. They are therefore missing. That market, the market for these goods is missing because they are mostly supplied by the government. That's when the government intervened by producing community goods as well as collective goods. Remember, community goods are free of charge, and then there are free riders. Collective goods are provided through what you call user charges. So missing market can only form under certain conditions, and when these conditions are absent, markets struggle to exist. So they're undersupplied by the market. Public goods are not provided for by the market mechanism because producers cannot withhold the goods for non-payment. Remember, people are not willing to pay for them. So producers cannot produce goods that are not paid for by consumers. Merit goods are those goods that are highly desirable for general welfare of people and often not highly rated by the market. Markets are underrating these goods that are called merit goods, such as education, defense force, as well as the healthcare. They are therefore supplied by the government. If people have to pay market prices for them, relatively little would be consumed on these goods. Therefore, the state intervened to provide these goods because they are very much or highly desirable for social welfare. We continue with the missing market. There are those goods like cigarettes and alcohol which are over consumed in the free market. And then what happens then? We call them demerit goods. Government can ban their consumption or reduce it by means of taxation, such as excise duties and providing information about their harmful side effects. We remember that the state intervened by forcing business to provide information about their products on the packaging. Even the bad effects of those goods should be displayed. Even when they are being advertised, the precautions should be set and should be displayed to people so that they cannot overuse them. Producers produce goods in order to make profit, hence they produce only goods where they can earn profit with, hence they fail to produce enough. So they cannot produce some good that will not give them profit because people are not willing to pay for. Public goods are consumed by a community, and no one can be excluded from consuming those goods. So that's why the state intervened to make the provision of those goods, because those goods are for everyone in the society. For instance, street light is for everyone. So it will be difficult for the private sector to derive the benefit achieved by the society on those goods and services. Therefore, the government intervenes to make the provision of those goods. As a result of this non-excludability, the private sector is usually unwilling to provide these goods and services because everybody will get to access the consumption of these goods without having to pay for them. Imperfect information or lack of information. Remember, in this case, it's very important for consumers to obtain maximum information about the prevailing market condition so that they can make informed decisions. It is very important for the consumer to know the market where it can discover the quality of the product at the lowest possible cost than being exploited by demanding in the market where goods are sold at the highest possible cost. Also for producers, it is very important that producers are able to discover adequate information about the prevailing market condition. They must know the market where they can find cheap capital that can give them more production at the lower cost. So if ever they are not informed, they will always be demanding capital at the higher cost. It is also important for the market or business to know the labor market that is relatively cheap for them, so that they can be able to produce more goods at the lower cost per unit with the cheap labor cost. If they are not informed, they will always be paying high wages and salaries for employees, while there's a market available somewhere that can offer them relatively cheap labor. It is important for workers or for those that are seeking for job to get enough information about the job before they choose. It is important for you to obtain that information before you choose the job. Know the danger of the job, know the payment or income that will be earned on that particular job per month. Because if you don't know that, you will be making uninformed decisions. That's just the summary of lack of information. If consumers and producers are uninformed about information that is prevailing in the market, they make uninformed decisions, and that leads to inefficiency within the market. And then it continues here explaining the same thing, like entrepreneurs may lack information about the cost, availability, and productivity of some factors of production and may be operating on the basis of incorrect information. Incomplete information about the production techniques, cost of production, needs and wants of the households means that factors of production are employed without answering three basic questions of the economy, such as what, how, and for whom to produce. Producers do not know exactly what the demand will be, and thus cannot adjust their supply to be more efficient. If they are not informed about the target market, they won't be able to supply accordingly. So that will be leading to inefficiency in the market. Immobility of factors of production. So if we can claim the summary here to save time, here we talk about labor. We say labor is totally inflexible. Labor find it difficult to move from one place to another, from one work to another. If ever one worker should have to move from one province to another, it will be difficult because there are some logistics that are in place that should be adhered to. For instance, moving from one province to another is having some family ties on that particular worker, having to adjust and move the family. There should be a property, and then there should be school to be there should be a school that one should get for children to move with them. Also, sometimes moving to some cities, there is a high level of congestion, and people will take time to adapt to the standard of living and adapt to the environment basically in the particular area. So it becomes more difficult. Also, remember, labor also is not flexible. Labor, like if we are a teacher or educator, we are trained to be a teacher. You can't be a nurse at the same time. For that sake means we are inflexible. We are not mobile. We cannot switch from one use to another, from one expertise to another expertise, because we are trained on one professionalism. So it is difficult for us to twist or to shift from one use to another. For that sake, we are inflexible and totally immobile. We talk about producers or businesses. Then, in this case, we refer to entrepreneurs. An entrepreneur cannot simply move from one use to another. We know that entrepreneurs are trained basically on their specialization. It's more like labor. They cannot be flexible and move from one use to another, because that training will be, they will be more efficient if they focus mostly on what they've been trained to do. And then we talk about the capital. Capital cannot easily move from one place to another. For instance, you have offices available in Gauteng. You can't move them to another province if you are relocating. That will mean you have to rent other offices in another province, which will result to inefficient use of resources again. Also, we have a proper infrastructure available. For instance, we talk about the likes of railways being available in Gauteng, but they are underused. Then they are needed somewhere. We can't move them. They take time to be installed. They are expensive, but they cannot be moved from one place to another because they are there permanently. So that's an inflexibility of factors of production. They cannot be twisted or moved from one use to another. Even machines or equipment, you can't twist the photocopying machine to do something else. If the machine is designed for photocopying and printing, it will be focusing on those two items, cannot do something else. You cannot take it to use it as a micro oven, because that is a photocopying and printing machine. So machines are single purposed produced. They can't be twisted. Let's say we have more of photocopying machines. We are lacking other machines that you need in the market or in the business. You cannot switch the use from the machine from one use to another. That's an inflexibility we are talking about in there. And then it continues, immobility of factors of production. I think I've covered it all here as for immobility. And then imperfect distribution of income. We know that income is unfairly distributed. And we know that if ever initial income distribution is unfair, the final will also be unfair. So this will result to inequalities existing in the country or in the market. Market system is neutral on issues of income distribution. Discrimination distorts earnings for women and minority groups, disabled persons, and people subject to illnesses and incapacity. The market produces goods and services only for those who can afford. So people that cannot afford are not produced goods and services for, because they cannot afford those goods and services. If initial income distribution is unfair, also the final will also be unfair. Imperfect competition. So in the market, the economy's competition is often impaired by power of certain producers to prevent new business from entering the market. We know that imperfect market is having this issue of high barriers to end that prevent the entry of new business into the market. Also, we have the likes of monopoly that will always increase prices to restrict the output, and they exploit consumers to higher prices. We have oligopolies that use the likes of collusive behavior so that they restrict the entry of new businesses within the market. So they abuse their power within the economy, within the market, so that they keep on enjoying their profits. So most businesses operate under conditions of imperfect market because, that allow producers to restrict output, raise prices, and produce where the price exceeds the marginal cost. An imperfect market does not allow the price negotiations. Externalities, remember, were both negative and positive. So in this case, we talk about the charges of benefit that spill over to a third part that was not the part of initial transaction. So they can be differentiated into both positive externalities as well as negative externalities. If we talk about negative externalities, we talk about charges that spill over to a third party, and positive, those are benefits that are enjoyed by the third party. To get negative externality, we talk about the likes of internal costs, external costs, which give us social costs, and then positive, we talk about internal benefit plus external benefit, which give us the social benefit. So we say externalities are the effect of the actions of one party on another party who was not involved in the initial transaction. The cause of market mechanism to allocate resources inefficiency because of the market price does not reflect the full cause or benefit of the economic activity. The market price only reflects the private cost and private benefits only. And then negative externalities are being explained here. These are called that spill over to the third party, such as pollution. Remember, whenever the business pollute, that affect the community, and people will be infected because they will be affected by asthma. For that sake, they will have to consult doctors. So that extra cost they pay for consultation of doctors now affect them while they were not involved in the production by the firm in there. So these harmful goods are often overproduced in the economy, which is not socially desirable. And then we continue. Positive externalities. In this case, we talk about benefits that are enjoyed by the third party. Markets fail when goods with poisonous nitrates are often underproduced, and the government steps step to produce those goods and services. Whenever people are demanding more goods that is desirable, but they're undersupplied, that will lead to the market failure, because those goods are only containing poisonous nitrates. The likes of education, the healthcare, as well as the defense forces undersupplied by the market, but the government intervened to supply it. So the issue of inequalities, a high level of economic inequality means high level of poverty. Poverty is associated with increase in the crime level and poor public health, which places the burden on the economy. And then in the face of increasing food prices and the lower income support for the growth, the government policies decline. And then we continue. Wealthy citizens maintain disproportionate political power compared to poor citizens, which encourages the development of inefficient tax structures skewed in the favor of the wealthy people. We continue. Unequal income distribution increases political instability, which threatens property rights, increases the risk of the state reject contracts, and discourages capital accumulation. A widening rich people gap tends to be increase the rate of rent seeking and predatory market behavior that hinder economic growth. Growth is suppressed in the economically unequal societies by decreasing availability of investment for human capital. That was for 10 marks. Additional part, remember you answer in full sentences. The conclusion in there, it should be the higher order. Any kind of the conclusion can be accepted, as well as, as long as it's not the repetition of the content from the main part and the additional part, but it should be the higher order response that is provided. Maximum of 2, then you get your 40 marks. And then we check another, it's a examine effects of tourism in detail. So if you can come across this, it's a you must be happy, because I think most of you enjoyed tourism when you were answering it in the previous examinations, but you must be careful with benefits of tourism as well as the effects of tourism. There's a different way to answer, but the content is totally related. Additional part, evaluate the South African government policies to promote tourism. That is for 10 marks. Then let's look. Introduction, we define tourism. It occurs when people travel from their usual places to unusual places for the period of not more than a year. And then these activities regarded as tourism, if tourists leave their usual places to unusual places, spending a night away, traveling distance not less than 160 kilometers, and also people are not expecting any remuneration or payment over that tour they've taken. That can be a tourism. And then gross domestic product. Tourism has the biggest impact on services industry. Indirect contribution. Tourism is a service-based industry. It is responsible for 65% of GDP in developed countries and 40% of GDP in developing countries. And then direct contribution, tourism contribute about 7.9% of GDP in South Africa compared to the worldwide 12%. The tourism industry impact more on the service industry than on the agriculture or manufacturing, although there are upstream effects. For example, agriculture provide food, meaning there's a link here, because agriculture provide food for tourists, provide in the market for tourists. Then there's always a link in there, even though we say service industry is the one that is mostly affected by tourism, but then the secondary sector and primary sector are also the part of the tourism, because they provide for what? For tertiary sector. And then we continue. Indirect contribution. Tourism is service-based industry and has been partly responsible for service sector. Service sectors growth over recent years. And then in developing economies, the sector is responsible for 40%. I think that's a repetition. And then we continue. In South Africa, it is similar to that developed countries. Service contributed about 67% of the GDP in 2011. And then direct contribution totally, to really plan for the economic development of the tourism sector, it is important to know the amount of its total direct contribution in the economy. And then SSA shows that this what you call it, in 2010, inbound tourists contributed 69 billion, and domestic tourists contributed about 99 billion, amounting to 168 billion. And then this is about 3% of South Africa's GDP. In the indirect contribution is added. If it's added, tourism adds about 7% to the GDP. investment, how does it affect the investment? Tourism employs about 7% of South Africa's workforce, approximately 1.12 million people. Tourism sector directly and indirectly employ people. The sector is the large creator of job, employs about 7% of workforce in South Africa. Tourism is labor intensive. It has lowest ratio of investment to employment creation. And then this means that more jobs can be created with every unit of capital invested in the tourism industry. Many tourist activities are therefore within the reach of small tour operators. We continue the investment. Tourist destinations require adequate physical hotel rooms and economic infrastructure, ATMs, and basic water and electricity supply, as well as infrastructure. They must be available. So it leads to improvement of the infrastructure. So this includes transport facilities such as improved roads are needed to access tourist sites or destination. Communication infrastructure is very important also. Energy infrastructure is also very important, such as electricity and fuel for tourists to be able to enjoy themselves within the country and be able to travel from one point to another. Basic services, e.g. clean water and refuse removal is very important for the tourism industry. So that was infrastructure. Employment. So tourism employs many skills. Various skills are employed in the tourism that include skilled labor, semi-skilled and non-skilled labor. They are employed in there. And also remember that it is labor intensive. It employs most of human than employing machinery or equipment. The tourism provides immediate employment. It is properly organized and forecast. The tourism sector can create many jobs within the short period of time. Tourism provides entrepreneurial opportunities. The tourism industry accommodates informal businesses as well as formal businesses, allowing people to start their business as street vendors and also informal businesses, where, especially if ever there are tourism attractions, people can be able to go there and sell their own products in there, which will be improving themselves, and also they'll be able to earn income and improve their standards of living. The poverty is most evident in rural areas, but then we know that with tourism being mostly involved in rural areas with more attractions, then poverty relief occurs in those areas because most of attractions are there and people get opportunities to establish their own small business so that they can earn income. They also get to be employed by those tourism attractions, hotels, restaurants, etc., so that they can earn income for living. Tourism is a fast and effective mechanism for distribution of resources in rural areas to develop them as tourist sites. We know that even infrastructure can develop faster, which will allow people to get to be employed and get income for living, which will be reducing poverty. Many prime tourist attractions are located in rural areas, which allow people in those areas to earn income and improve their living standards. Tourism development in rural areas increase the number of available jobs in areas where there are no many job opportunities or no much job opportunities. Tourism promotes balance and sustained development for people in those rural areas that are able to get better, to access better infrastructure and also be able to live better living style because of accessible infrastructure, such as economic and social infrastructure. Shopping centers will be available, malls will be available, which are also the part of tourism industry, and also accommodation such as superstructure will be built, which will benefit people of the area as well as tourists. So there will be poverty relief because of the tourism. People can earn living in their home areas, resulting to reduction of urbanization and more balanced population distribution. That will lead to people not living mostly to urban areas because they will be earning living in rural areas. It allows rural people to share in the benefits of tourism, promoting a more balanced, sustainable form of development. Tourism provides alternative to urbanization, permitting people to continue in rural family lifestyle, empowering both women and youth to function and starting businesses in rural areas. Tourism offers opportunities to diversify sources of income for poor people. People can find different ways to earn income in their rural areas because of what? Because of the attractions being available in areas. They can just find ways to create income, and then they can escape poverty, find themselves living above poverty line, allowing them to start and operate small scale of tourism businesses around community assets, forest parks and rivers, and establish small businesses. empower them, allows them to exploit opportunities on the job and other training. They can obtain even some skills that are employed as tour guides and also working in hotels. They can be trained while they are working. Creating partnership, linking up mainstream tourism businesses supplying goods and services, so they can be able to supply their own goods and services within the main market in there. So it can also allow them to form partnership with big businesses as they supply their craft works, for instance, to business for the sake of tourism industry. Externalities. So we know that in this case, we have negative and positive. The tourism industry can have both negative and positive externalities. Externalities can define as cause of benefit that spill over to that party, as explained before. While tourism attracts large amount of revenues, it can also cause undue environmental damage, because it can lead to environmental stress if more people are visiting the same area at a short period of time. Also, the congestion and also the stampede in there, it can undermine the environment in that particular area. Rapid growth in tourism aiming at short-term benefit usually result to more negative than positive effects. And then these include degeneration of traditions and cultural values and environmental damage to sites and natural areas. And then as for positive, it attracts a large amount of revenues for business and the government. Tourism lead to improvement of infrastructure within the economy. Tourism stimulate employment opportunities directly and indirectly. And then it can help conserve cultural and natural assets, alleviate poverty. And then negative externalities, tourism can cause environmental damage if they are not well managed correctly. And then also it can result to the loss of waste in those areas. And then infrastructure, the infrastructure at tourist sites can come under pressure if ever there is increase in number of people in the area. Tourism can lead to increased prices for local people, because business get an opportunity to increase their prices because they know that the area is a hotspot or destination for the tourism. Then people of the area will be affected by high prices caused by the tourism industry itself. And then we continue. Tourism can create environmental stress. It can result in the following: permanent destruction of landscape, where there's a construction in place, additional waste of products. We all know that if ever large number of people increase in the area, there will be additional waste. And then also direct environmental stress, the loss of wildlife species due to safari hunting, and then effect of population dynamics, e.g. migration and changes in population density in response to the needs of the tourist site. And then evaluate the South African government policies to promote tourism. So the successful part, implementing tax policies to stimulate growth of tourism, whereby the state decide to give what we call the tax rebate on tourists, especially from other countries, targeting specific objective for specially favorable tax treatment in the form of tax holidays or rebates, like I've mentioned before. Promoting tourism through ASGI's Accelerated Shared Growth Initiative for South Africa. And then this initiative ensure that government, in partnership with the private sector, provided necessary infrastructure for tourism, help to keep tourism industry growing and attracted more tourists. Then we continue. The success, encouraging ecotourism, encouraging tourism to selected region, SMMEs involvement with an emphasis on the informal sector and Black empowerment initiatives. Applying the domestic tourism growth strategy that aim at increasing expenditure on domestic tourism and reduce seasonality. And then the success continue, launching SA Tourism Short Left campaign in August 2007, allowing people to tour within their own areas. It aims to promote culture of local holiday travel, targeting ordinary South Africans in their families who have a desire to see more of a country but don't know where to go. And then government policies could be more successful if special tax policies are applied to education and training programs designed to overcome the lack of skills at the various levels of the industry. There is a greater geographical spread of tourism, which will increase the volume of domestic tourists. Destinations are spread across rural communities to make the most beneficiaries while making use of their unused land. And then that was for 10 marks additional part. Then conclusion, any kind of the conclusion that is the higher order will be accepted as long as you don't repeat information mentioned in the main part and additional part. That were 2 marks, then you have your maximum of 2 marks. Then the entire essay is 4 marks. Then the following are the graphs. I'll just peruse on them. Under perfect market, we have the following graphs. Economic loss graph, where your AC is turning above your AR. and then be able to draw the graph and interpret the graph when necessary. And then also economic profit graph where your AR is above your AC, AC is down, the AR is above, then that is your economic profit or supernormal profit. And then we continue. A normal profit, that is when average cost equal to the average revenues. Remember, that is the point where they meet. Remember the profit maximization point where MC equals to MR. And then we continue. The entry of firms in the market. Remember, if new firms are entering the market, the supply in the market will be increasing, and then that will be pushing prices down, resulting to the firm taking the new price from 90 to 50 as individual firms, which will be leading to the firm now making a normal profit because of the increasing number of competitors in the market. And then the exit of firms also comes in here, whereby as firms are leaving the market, the supply will be declining from S to S1, resulting to the price increasing to 150, then the firm will be taking the price at 150. It will be leading to the firm producing even more goods from Q to Q1 because the competition has been reduced in the market. It will be leading to what? To the firm enjoying economic profit because the AC is lower than the AR1 there. And then we continue with the next one. This is when we maximize the profit using MR and MC. Remember, we are giving your MR being horizontal there. And then our MR or revenues are equals to 40. Then in that case, any point where MC is below 40, that means economic profit. Any point where MC is above 40, that means economic loss. Any point along where MC equal to MR, that means a normal profit. The graph that we've seen in our section B, the profit maximization, it is very important for you also to be able to draw the graph and explain it when necessary, where we have your total revenue and total cost, where we maximize the profit. Remember, it is maximized where the gap between TC and TR is wide. And then we continue at the shutdown point. Remember, shutdown conditions are different, but it means the same thing. The firm will shut down if the firm cannot afford to cover or manage it a variable cost. Remember, the firm do have influence over variable cost, but cannot influence fixed cost. So if the firm cannot be able to manage its variable cost, the firm should leave the market. Remember, the shutdown also doesn't mean that the firm is leaving the market. If the firm is producing more than one product, the firm can stop producing that particular product where it is not making any much revenues. Then we call that a shutdown. Or if the firm is producing one product, the firm will have to exit the market, meaning it will leave because it was producing only one product and the product is not profitable because the AVC equal to the price. AVC equal to the price, and then AVC equals to the AR equal to MR equals to MC, then the firm will shut down. Remember, you must be able to draw the graph here. And then the monopoly graphs. We talk about average revenue, marginal revenue, and total revenue, where we are maximizing. Remember, we have our downward sloping demand curve, which is there, and then our total revenue will be increasing until it's being maximized. After being maximized, it cannot increase further. It will slope down until it becomes zero. Then we maximize our total revenues at Q here, which is Q and P in this. You must be able to draw the graph and explain the graph when necessary. And then also economic loss. Remember, it occurs when AC turns above AR. Our AR is at this point, AC is above there, meaning our costs are 200, our AC are 100, then the firm is making economic loss. Be able to calculate the profit. Remember, it's very important for you. If you calculate the profit, we say profit equals to AR minus AC times Q, or we say the profit equals to TR minus TC. Work it out. It is very important for you to be able to calculate, even be able to calculate your marginal revenue, marginal total revenue, etc. And then that was the explanation. And then we continue with the what we call economic profit. That is when now your revenues are more than your costs. Your revenues are 150, your costs are down there at 90. Then the firm is making economic profit because costs are lower than revenues. And then we continue. The normal profit where both AC and AR are equal here. AC turns along the AR, then they're both 300. That means the firm is breaking even. It is not making a profit, neither a loss. Remember, these are minimum earnings that prevent the firm from leaving the market. Market failures graphs. You have negative externalities. Here we see the supply is decreasing from from S to S1. Marginal private cost and marginal social cost. The supply is decreasing because maybe the state intervened by charging most of environmental taxes or excise duties to make the product to be more expensive and there will be less supply in there because the cost of production increases for the firm, then its supply is less. Consumers are demanding more at Q, but what do you call it? The firm is supplying less at Q1 because the firm cannot produce more due to the fact that the cost of production is relatively high due to the government intervening by imposing more tax. Remember that area there shaded indicate the external cost or social cost or deadweight loss. Positive externality, that's when now the demand increases more than the supply. Supply remains constant at the marginal private cost, and then the demand, marginal private benefit, and then marginal social benefit is there. The demand is increasing, meaning consumers are demanding more of this particular product, but the supply remains constant. That caused to the result to the market failure because there is an undersupply now of this particular product. And then shaded area is the social benefit or external benefit. And then this is the PPC indicating efficiencies as well as inefficiencies. It is very important for you to remember all efficiencies or inefficiencies, which talks to productive or technical efficiency, allocative efficiency. And then remember, we also have Pareto efficiency and Pareto inefficiency, technical or productive inefficiency, as well as allocative inefficiency. Any point inside indicate allocative inefficiency and productive inefficiency. This point along here where there is an indifferent curve, which is FF, it is indicating what we call allocative efficiency. It's also productive efficiency. The point outside there, point E, is unattainable because the firm cannot afford to produce anything outside the PPC. And then we have minimum wages. It has been explained in the, minimum price, whereby the government intervened by providing, by encouraging firm to charge more of a particular product so that business can produce more. We know that if ever the product is very expensive, businesses are always encouraged to produce more. So we find them producing more, resulting to the market surplus here because they will be overproducing and oversupplying while the demand is declining because the product is totally expensive for consumers. And then we go further to maximum prices. Those are prices that are set by the government to be below equilibrium or market price. There you see, to ensure that people can afford these goods and save, the price will be 50 Rand instead of being 100 Rand. Then the market will be undersupplying the product because now it becomes more cheap. It is being discouraged to supply. That's when the government intervene to produce the product because it is undersupplied by the market. That's why we come across the market shortage. The supply will be less than the demand. And then levying of taxes, we know that if ever tax has been imposed, that give us negative externality whereby the supply will be declining, shifting back, and the demand remains higher, but the supply decline. The quantity demanded is Q, but quantity supply is Q1, resulting to the market failures also. And then we continue to subsidies. We spoke about this one whereby the supply increased faster than the demand, and then we come across the price dropping down, and then the quantity supply increasing. Consumers affording more of the product, producers producing more of the product at the lower cost per unit. And then minimum wages, that's when the government intervened by imposing some wages to be above equilibrium to benefit people to afford more of the product, to afford more of life and improve living standard. However, I mentioned before that there will be more supply of labor and less demand for labor, resulting to the retrenchment. And then that's when the state now must intervene by providing employment subsidies to businesses. And then we have two inflation graphs that you must consider. We have the one for the demand pull inflation that appeared in our section B, whereby the demand increased more than the supply, pushing prices up, and then supply remaining the same. That will be resulting to the demand pull inflation. We have the one for cost push inflation, whereby there is a market shortage or undersupply of the particular product. Then the supply will be declining. If the supply declines, what will happen if the demand remains there? That will lead to the price increasing, and this increase in price is a part of the cost push inflation. This is because of the market shortages or market inefficiencies. And then this is your worksheet now that I believe you will use it as you prepare for the examination. Other than that, after this long lesson, long academic year, long everything, I, Mr. Mhlongo, thank you. I wish you all the best for paper 2, and I believe whatever impact we have had here in these presentations, you guys will benefit as you approach your paper 2, and also generally in life, and also as you go to university, you will be coming across the same content. And I believe it will the same thing we've been doing will assist you to master and to adapt in the university level. So after all, candidates, I thank you for everything, and I believe I have had a greater impact in economics, in Gauteng, and other provinces, and also South Africa as a whole through this presentation, because they go across the country and even international. I believe this will benefit you, and I believe you will be able to conquer the paper 2 tomorrow. Nothing will be challenging, nothing will be difficult. In any challenge you will be coming across, just ensure that you redeem yourself and knock down the question paper. It is the only few hours remaining before you leave economics aside and focus in other subjects. All the best, and we are aiming for high distinctions. Thank you so much.